So a lot of these structures are literally sitting directly on top of these high energy magnetic fields.
Really?
So if you take if you go and get the from usgs.gov and take the Earth's magnetic field map, and then lay it over a map of like a lot of these megalithic structures, all of a sudden you go, oh my God, they're all sitting on top of like high energy magnetic portals, basically. And what's interesting about that is how in the world did they figure this out? Like, what type of tool do you use to measure how much magnetism is whipping out of the Earth here from the core or 100 miles away? How do you distinguish which one is the one, the spot to put it in? They had to have had some level of advanced technology that had the capability. Now we do it through satellite technology. So how in the world were they able to do it? We have a satellite that orbits the planet in a polar orbit. It orbits this way, not this way. And as the Earth spins on its axis, it's taking swaths of data. Magnetism, electric magnetic fields, it's taking topographical data and so forth and so on, minerals and so forth. We know everything that's on Earth from a polar orbiting satellite, which is why I believe that that's exactly what was used. Because if you look at the Great Pyramid at Giza, where is it located? Directly at the center of landmass on Earth, not the center of the Earth, the center of landmass. There's only one way to get that calculation. You have to have a satellite orbiting in a polar orbit, scanning the planet as it spins on its axis to pick up all the topographical data, to be able to calculate the land mass and to find the dead center of the mass of land. And not only that, of course, it has one of the biggest magnetic fields coming right out of that spot too. So boom, dead center, they drop it right there. And then also the Great Pyramid, the height of it matches the average height of all the peaks on Earth. Again, how can you do that? Polar orbiting satellite, as the Earth is spinning, it's calculating all the peaks.
The peak of the pyramid,
yes,
is the average of all the peaks
on Earth.
On Earth.
All the natural peaks on Earth is the average height of all the natural peaks on Earth.
I mean, there's so many things. There's so many things with the pyramids and these other structures that just, I mean, it's
mind-boggling.
I mean, I was taught that these 7-ton bricks were, they use sticks
and ropes and mud and elephants. The mud ramp theory had it took over for a little while, but then some real good physicists said, I don't know, they did some calculations, you would need more mass than the pyramid in mud to be able to create the mud ramps to put the brick. It didn't add up. So the mud ramp, and then the lack of trees and lack of timber and so forth to roll in these 15-ton stones in some cases on top of wooden. I mean, come on, it just sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And when you go to the Serapeum at Saqqara, which is Enki's Halls of Amenti, it's these underground halls that are there that I take people to every year, that has this incredible hallway carved out of solid stone underground, and these alcoves are in there, and inside of each alcove, perfectly fitted, tight and snug, are these 60 and 70-ton what look like sarcophagus. But they're not sarcophagus because there's no dead bodies in them. They're clean. They're actually, you can eat off the floor inside of those things. I've stood inside of them. They're higher than my head, and I'm 6'4". The lids weigh like 40 tons. But if you read the Emerald Tablets, you discover those were the halls of Amenti, where these beings claimed to have rejuvenation chambers, and they would put bodies in them, and they would literally had some type of technology that would transfer their consciousness into a new body when the other one wore out. And they would put the wore out body in these things and let them rejuvenate over time. Sounds crazy, but now modern science is doing the same exact thing. They literally are right now doing the same exact thing, learning how to transfer human consciousness from one body to another. They've even created mind links where they can transfer an active awake person's mind into a person that is already awake and conscious.
Wait a minute, who's doing this?
Scientists at the Brain Institute and other laboratories all around the world. There's an experiment, and I'll get you the exact experiment that it was, where they have one gentleman in a room with a blindfold on and his hand on a remote control, video game in front of him, but he can't see the video game. They have another gentleman in another room who's looking at the video game with no remote control. They create a mind link between the two and transfer this guy's mind into the other guy. He's now controlling the other guy's hands to play the video game.
No way.
Yes.
This is documented.
Documented. Real
actual science.
Actual science. I'll send you. And listen, In Russia, the 2045 project, Ray Kurzweil, they've already took a monkey and transferred its consciousness into a computer. That was done in 2010. In 2000, I think 16 or 17, it was to transfer a human consciousness into a robot, which that's been done. In America, we have DARPA. They have the Avatar project. Look that up, the Avatar project. I wrote about it in my book, where they transfer a soldier's consciousness into a field robot. And then the only thing that gets damaged if the robot blows up, the symbiotic link is disconnected through consciousness, but the soldier's obviously not going to die. And so this has all been done. This is real science being actively used right now. By 2045, which is the 2045 project in Russia, they're looking to transfer human consciousness into an actual being, an actual avatar body. You know, so they can take a skin cell from you, they can put it in a petri dish, they can get it under the right conditions, turn that skin cell into a stem cell, culture that, turn that into a group of stem cells, and then grow that into a full clone of yourself using your own stem cells, and then transfer your mind into your new body.
Whoa. I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
Ever.
And it's all in my book. This is real stuff, man.
How do you find this kind of stuff?
It just comes to me, you know. When you start going down these paths of research, you become a magnet for information, and information just begins to come directly to you from all sources. And then when you look it up and dig deeper into it, obviously some of it's not good, you don't use it, but the stuff that is real, I write about it and I put my source links to it because I want people to know, like, this is real and you can go look it up yourself.
Wow. Wow. What? Let's go back to the pyramids and all these other wonders of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these wonders are the architecture and the strategy to build the buildings seem to be identical in a lot of these places.
Oh, yeah.
How do you explain that? One
master architect. If you look at the Emerald Tablets, got to go back to the oldest text that we know of, 38,000-year-old text. Thoth claims to have built the Great Pyramid. He said, build it I, the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages, and it sure has. So the Great Pyramid is not 4,000 or 5,000 years old. That Great Pyramid is about 38,000 years old. And so is the Sphinx. His father told him to build the Sphinx and put his face on it. And then later on, that face was recarved. This is why the face is not the right size for the body, to his nephew's face. But the face was never the face of a lion. But this guy was the master architect. He laid down the blueprint for how to do this. In the Emerald Tablets, he takes a crew with him on the great ship that descends on the land of Khem, rebuilds the land of Khem. He says something very interesting in this text. After spending many years there, they don't specify exactly how many, but they say many, many years, rebuilding the land of Khem, he tells that crew, that team that came with that original team, to spread out around the world and duplicate what we did here. Then all of a sudden, what happens? Pyramids pop up all around the world. Megalithic structures, megalithic temples all around the world, all using the same exact building technique. Thoth himself even leaves Africa, takes Olmecs with him, and leaves his brother Amun-Ra in charge, and he goes to Mesoamerica and builds the Teotihuacan civilization and builds that whole Teotihuacan pyramid complex, which, by the way, is aligned with Orion, the same exact formation as the ones in Africa, at Egypt, right, at Giza. And also what? Built on top of an aquifer. The base of the Pyramid of the Sun is exactly the same size as the base of the pyramid, Great Pyramid in Giza. And the height is exactly 50% the height down to the millimeter of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Again,
down to the millimeter?
Down to the millimeter. And this is, again, what? One master architect, again, showcasing his talents and going all around the world. This guy is known everywhere I've gone on the planet. I went to Africa. He's obviously all throughout Africa. He's known as Tahuti, Jehuti, Thoth, right? According to the ancient Egyptians, he ruled for 16,000 years, one person. In China, he's Wang Di, the first emperor of China, who came down on a fiery dragon. Sounds like a flying ship. Ruled over to China for decades, for several centuries, and then just got on this flying dragon and disappeared again. In Mexico, he's known as Quetzalcoatl, Lord Pakal, Kukulkan. He comes in on again a what? According to the Mayans, a fiery dragon, and he's there. What he built? Chichen Itza, Teotihuacan, Cobol, all these places were developed. The Mayans didn't build anything. They inherited what was already there. The Aztecs didn't build anything. It was already there. And that's even in their own records. Matter of fact, they didn't even know who the people were originally that built some of this stuff, so they gave them the name Teotihuacans. But in the Emerald Tablets, it tells you exactly who it was. And so I was out in Australia in the outback, in the middle of nowhere. A gigantic petroglyph of who? Thoth, out of Kemet, in Australia, carved into rock in the ground. They call him Thothamabi in Australia. The Aboriginal people call him Thothamabi, and he's on a ship flying through the Milky Way galaxy. That's what it is, a giant disc, and he's sitting on this thing, and they say that's him flying through the Milky Way galaxy.
Wow.
And so the more you look into it, these structures, they were built by people, not aliens. In other words, Thoth, in my opinion, wasn't from this planet, and also his relatives, but they had the people doing the labor. They taught the construction techniques, and they had the blueprints on how to do this. They weren't going to get out there themselves and do all this hard labor, but they had the blueprints. They laid out the foundation, and they said, hey, this is how we do this, and we're going to do this all around the entire planet.
I mean, how do you think it was built? I mean, I've had people that I have a lot of respect for and know for a fact that they are extremely intelligent individuals. One of them I've had on the show, his name's Chris Beck, and he was talking about the exact same thing, the aquifers, the crystals, the energy, and I mean, he was like, well, how do you move, how do you move things? Frequency and vibration.
That's it.
And if you think about it, if I put a subwoofer under a glass top table and I put a brick on it, it's going to move.
It's going to move.
And so do you think, is that how it did? Did they create some type of frequency and vibration, which...
Yeah. There's a famous Sumerian cylinder scroll. I'm going to send you a copy of this image. You see an Anunnaki god, you call him a god with a lowercase g, it ain't the God, okay? We know God is a god for real, but that ain't the God. They call him a god because these people didn't understand. These people had advanced technology. He's sitting on this box. This box has a symbol for magnetism on it, okay? And this ancient Sumerian tablet. And then, so he's sitting here with this box. There's this tripod thing up in the air, and it's got this disc. Underneath the disc is a gigantic stone table, and as human beings, you can tell they're human because their height compared to this guy, they're tiny. And a human is picking it up with one hand. That disc is a cymatic frequency. You can perfectly match. I found the exact frequency, and I have a video on that frequency, which creates that exact same cymatic pattern. And so that cymatic pattern and magnetism in some way reduce the weight of that gigantic stone table, allowing an average normal human being to pick it up with one hand. I'm gonna send you this image. Pretty interesting stuff. So when you now say, well, how do they do all this? Cymatic frequencies and magnetism, electromagnetism and cymatic frequencies, in some way together, they combine those two things to reduce the weight. It didn't make them completely weightless, but they significantly reduced the weight of a lot of the stones. The second thing is, Thoth gives away something else in the Emerald Tablets. He utilizes cymatic frequencies and photons to manifest solid matter. Now that sounds crazy in ancient tablets, but guess what happened 2 years ago in a laboratory in the world we live in right now? Scientists got together and they combined cymatic frequencies and photons, and for the first time ever created solid matter. That's in physics.org.
Wow.
So
where did that happen?
That happened, I believe it was in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll give you the link to all this stuff. So pretty interesting, right? So the tablets keep getting proven by modern science. This is why I keep going back to the tablets, because wait a minute. This guy says this then. You've heard of the active denial system in the military. It's this dish that sends out a beam of frequency towards people that are looking to be, do harm, right? Mobs, and it'll make you stop in your tracks. It'll make you feel like you got to vomit. It'll make you feel like you're on fire. It can even put voices in your head. It's called the active denial system in the military. Well, in the Emerald Tablets, Thoth has this group of people coming at him because they don't know who he is when he lands his ship. He says, I raised my staff and sent out a ray of vibration which stopped them still in their tracks. Sounds like the active denial system to me. Same technology, just a different year. So I go over. I keep putting these things in my book to show the commonalities between the two, because what we're doing now, we're just simply rediscovering everything that already existed.
Yeah.
We haven't done anything new yet. Everything was already done. Everything has already been done. We're just rediscovering what we lost.
Could you describe, I was watching this documentary last night, trying to get spun up on all this stuff again, and they talked a lot about how the pyramids, how a lot of these structures are measured in the metric system.
Yeah.
However, and they're perfect. I don't know the exact measurements, but the stones are in the perfect metric system.
Yes.
Let's say it's 3 meters by 3 meters. The doorways, perfect metric system, maybe 3 meters by 2 meters. You know, the base of the pyramid.
Yeah.
It's
all based on meters. The whole thing.
The metric system wasn't developed for another 2,000 years.
Listen, even the Grand Gallery, the location of the Grand Gallery inside the Great Pyramid, when you look at the longitude, it's the same exact digits as the speed of light in meters per second. How is this possible? Well, I started asking the same question, and I said, wait, I gotta find some kind of link to this, and I found it. Guess what they found in Mexico decades ago? They found Proto-Sumerian cuneiform tablets and pottery and everything else. What is proto, meaning pre-Sumerian, stuff doing in the Americas? But not only did they find that, this is even on Wikipedia. It was a metric system. It was their metric system. So the metric system is thousands, tens of thousands of years old. Forget thousands, tens of thousands of years old. We only rediscovered what already existed, or probably the guy, I forget his name now, the French man who came up with it, probably found these tablets or the existence of these tablets and said, oh, I can make this whole metric system out of this. It already existed. The metric system is ancient. We only rediscovered what it was recently. That's all. That's the only thing I can give you.
How about the golden ratio?
Yeah.
What is the golden ratio?
The golden ratio is a specific numeric equation that gives you 3.17. It gives you the Fibonacci spiral. It also gives you the golden rectangle and the golden triangle, which no matter which way you look at them, you can always get the perfect spiral to fit inside. And that spiral, for whatever reason, because that spiral is in everything that's in life, it's very beautiful to us. So the most magnificent structures were always set on the Fibonacci spiral or pi, right? And so even the Great Pyramid is built on pi. All these magnificent structures were built on pi because for some reason it taps into our inner consciousness, our inner being. Our fingers, if you take your fingers and look at the space between your digits, you'll get pi. And you can get the Fibonacci's code based on the space in the digits of your own hand. The distance from your eyes to your nose, the distance from your top of your, in between your eyebrows to the tip of your nose, all this is all the same thing over. And it just the distance from your elbow to your wrist, the distance from the wrist to the tip of your middle finger, it's all pi. You see?
Are you kidding me? What do you mean it's
the
pi?
whole human body's designed on that number.
You mean it's the... What do you mean it's pi?
You can get if you calculate the distance in the space in between your digits and your elbows and your joints and everything else, I'll send you a diagram on this as well. You'll get the Fibonacci sequence built into the human avatar body itself. It's in everything.
I mean, I don't understand how it could be pi, because if it's pi is what, 3.14? Repeating forever?
Right, but you see, when you calculate, well, pi creates a Fibonacci spiral, or allows you to place the Fibonacci spiral inside of anything, all right? And so when you start creating these calculations, and you start doing the measurements of these distances, you start finding out that they fit perfectly with that number, and that you can get the Fibonacci sequence is built into the human avatar body. And I'll give you a complete diagram so you can see how it all breaks down.
Okay. I just want to figure it out right now because my mind's blown. So, I mean, obviously the distance from my eye to the middle of my, whatever this is, nose,
right, top of your nose,
is completely different than from my elbow to my wrist.
Right, but there's a ratio, and when you apply this specific ratio, you'll find that this is the reason why this is this distance is the average distance, and this distance here is the average distance. In other words, they can calculate based on how many inches or millimeters or centimeters, it comes out to be a perfect, when they make the boxes and connect everything, it comes out to be like the golden rectangle, the golden triangle, and you can fit the Fibonacci sequence right inside, or the Fibonacci spiral right inside of them. When they begin to make all the connections, like connecting dots, all of a sudden, everything fits perfectly. And like I said, so in other words, if I take the distance from this digit to this digit, and this digit to this digit, and this digit to the top of my finger, all of a sudden, I'll find that when I look at it underneath the connected rectangles, that Fibonacci will fit inside of these digits. So the Fibonacci sequence, which is now we find in almost all life, is actually part of fractals. So we're living in a fractal-based universe. Everything is a fractal of something else, something bigger, something grander. But also, it's also a fingerprint. So the fingerprint of God is the Fibonacci sequence.
A shout out to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Start building your personalized vehicle on War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox. And use my link in the description or pinned comment section to register. For those of you who are new or haven't played for 6 months, will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more.
So we're living in a fractal-based universe. Everything is a fractal of something else, something bigger, something grander. But also, it's also a fingerprint. So the fingerprint of God is the Fibonacci sequence. It's the evidence that we're living in a creation, that we also are created.
This discussion is blowing my mind here. Easter Island.
Oh man, Easter Island.
Easter Island really catches my attention. In fact, I looked at getting there. It seems like it's
hard.
It's not easy. There's not very many flights going in and out of there at all.
I've been trying to go to Easter Island for the last 10 years.
You can't get in?
Not only cannot get in, nobody's going to get in now because they just went there. Somebody went there and lit that place on fire. Yeah,
what?
They burned down the majority of the moai heads. They put some type of a chemical on the moais and lit that on fire, which melted solid stone.
When did this happen?
That happened in October of 2022. Yeah.
Somebody went there and ruined it.
It's hard to get there. How do you get the fuel there? And whatever was added to this fuel, or whatever type of fuel it was, I mean, who had the approval to bring that kind of chemical through international waters onto that island to then have the time to put it on top of the stone and then to actually light them all on fire? There's no trees on Easter Island. There's nothing to keep the flames going. So somebody manually had to go and burn all these heads. So now with that being destroyed, and my biggest dream was to go there because those bodies, their heads are just the top of the body. There's full bodies underneath the ground that go down for meters. And their hands are holding weapons in some cases. They have technology in their hands. They're kind of, etched into the side of the bodies. But these things are super megalithic. And the reason why the heads are above the ground is because there was obviously a global flood, and that's a mud flow that covered these things up. That's why some of them are tilted over and falling over in different angles. That's the mud flow of the water coming off the ocean and then running across the land, and the mud piling up on top of these things. That's why the bodies are completely covered in dirt and soil. But yeah, incredible place. The heads are, pointed at different star systems. There's similar heads like you can find in South America.
Really?
Yeah, similar with the body still attached. So again, linking the cultures, showing that there's this link, that there wasn't just isolated civilizations, that this was at one point a global civilization. And these moai heads and their bodies are very similar to the Toltecs in Mexico. If you go to Tula, Mexico, and climb to the top of the Kukulkan house, which is like a half pyramid, at the top there's gigantic Toltecs, which resemble the bodies of these moais in Easter Island. And so it's an incredible place. In my opinion, more evidence of an ancient astronaut theory that existed. And remnants of an ancient civilization that we'll probably never know about. And now with the fires destroying everything, who knows? I
had no idea that fires destroyed those.
Yeah.
You think that was done on purpose?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, to destroy
the evidence. Too many people want to figure out like the bodies and everything. Too many good ideas started coming up showing the evidence of the mud flow that covered the bodies and everything else. And the technology that was in their hands, analyzing and trying to really understand what is it and how it linked to other cultures around the world. And now, again, somebody else at a very high level wiped out more history.
Let's move into Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is that?
Stonehenge is a gigantic place that allows you to do star alignments and also harness frequencies. Stonehenge may have been also a portal generator. there's been accounts. I've been on different TV shows on like Discovery Channel and Science Channel talking about Stonehenge, where there's been accounts where people disappeared. All right, a weird lightning storm comes out of nowhere, and this is back before they put up the gates and the fences and all that, and all of a sudden people just scream and then disappear from the center of the circle. And so it may be some type of a portal generator. Maybe it harnessed some type of energy or magnetic field of the earth and opened up a portal. It could be an ancient communication device. It might have been multifunctional, just like the Great Pyramid at Giza. It could be a multifunctional device, star alignments, communication, and portal generation as well.
Is it aligned with anything? Is it positioned in any certain particular way, like the pyramids?
Yeah, all star alignments. It aligns with specific stars and solstices that happen around the planet. The summer solstice, the winter solstice, all those alignments can be found right there at Stonehenge. And it's also rumored to have been built by who? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king from the Emerald Tablets.
When you say aligned
Yeah.
to certain stardust systems, what do you mean?
So if you look at the stones in a specific way, there's like sometimes there's little keyholes on them and things like that. The sun will shine directly through those little tiny keyholes that are carved out of the stone. They'll drop. It'll shine directly into the center of the circle. These alignments happen at specific times of the year. So whoever built this, they had a lot of celestial knowledge of days, months, years, times, and also, of course, the angles of the sun and how to capture the sun and illuminate certain areas of the henge, just like they did at Abu Simbel in Egypt, where you have this mountain that was carved from the outside going in, and in the back of this temple that was carved out of solid stone of a mountain, there are 3 gods sitting there. All right, and then the sun during the solstice comes through this tiny little hole in the top of the temple, the face of the temple, and it shines directly on and illuminates these gods in the back of this temple. If you're off by 1 millimeter when you start the first cut, you can't make it a perfect cut. You can't make this thing happen. So again, it's all the same people. I think, the same knowledge and understanding of the sun and the angles and the solstices and star alignments.
You've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
What are some less known structures that really fascinate you?
Oh yeah, wow. So in Turkey, you have something called Göbekli Tepe, which a lot of people know about Göbekli Tepe. Now it's been made famous because why? It predates now even Sumerian culture, even though Sumerian culture goes way beyond that, technically with the tablets, but they're saying now, okay, the Earth isn't, the history isn't 6,000 years old. We can go back to 13,000 now, because we know this was an advanced culture 13,000 years ago. But over there's also another place called Karahan Tepe. Karahan Tepe, in my opinion, is even older. And so I think a lot of people don't know about these places, these sites that exist. They have these gigantic stone pillars, and on these pillars are etched animals that are not from that region. So how did people know what the animals look like in other parts of the world to etch them into these gigantic megalithic stone pillars? Pretty interesting. And the other thing about that area is the majority of it was covered up by sand, but not sand from the area. Somebody covered that entire area with sand from over 400 miles away.
Really?
Yeah, crazy. Just wild stuff. Pretty interesting. There's also a place over there called Derinkuyu. Now, Derinkuyu, I've got to get there next year. I couldn't make it because the whole global sickness came, and then all the flights got canceled. Then when I finally had a flight to go there, they had an earthquake, and the whole airport, got destroyed and everything. I think they've rebuilt the airport now. So I'm going to go there next year. But Derinkuyu is an underground base built in ancient times, thousands of years ago, that was designed to house over 30,000 people, including livestock. And at the deepest levels, you can go down there. There's been no signs of collapse. And there's 14,000 ventilation shafts that go to the deepest levels to bring oxygen no matter how deep you are in the place. And it's one gigantic rolling stone door that an average small person can just roll with their hand and seal it from the inside, but from the outside it's impenetrable.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I have seen a little bit of information on this.
Okay.
I'd love to go there too.
Yeah, that's incredible place, yeah.
Have you been to all these places?
I haven't been to Turkey. That earthquake ruined my second opportunity, the sickness and then the earthquake, but I'm going to get there next year. But I've been to a lot of places, but this year I'm going back to Egypt again with a group of 70 people, taking them on a private VIP tour. Then I'm gonna do a second tour with a smaller group for 4 days, and then I'm gonna go to Cambodia right after that and take people on a tour through Cambodia, through Angkor Wat, Tao Pram, all these other ancient sites out there.
What's going on over there?
You know, Angkor Wat's an amazing place. It's the largest temple complex in the world. And actually the X-Men mansion from X-Men is based on the Angkor Wat temple.
Really?
This is a megalithic temple that has a super megalithic Olympic-sized swimming pool on the second floor, made out of solid stone. Can you imagine the weight? Imagine the water, with the water in it, what the weight is.
Yeah.
How do you build a structure that can disperse evenly that amount of weight load without collapse? Who has the technology, the understanding, the physics knowledge to build that structure? It's such a massive structure, and according to the homegrown people, the indigenous people, it was built in a day and a night. By who? By the brothers that came down from the heavens. So in some way, these people show up. What type of technology they used, nobody knows, but they built this according to them in a day and a night. And it's weird how the actual structure looks like it was poured into place. It looks like molten rock. It's an incredible temple. If you ever get a chance to go to Angkor Wat, I highly, highly recommend it. And then at Tao Pram, I love taking people there because it's an ancient temple, thousands of years old, but in the actual relief of the building, there's carvings in stone. One of them is a stegosaurus. What's that doing there? What is a dinosaur with the meat on its bones doing carved into an ancient temple? There's only one reason. They knew what a dinosaur looked like because obviously at some point we walked amongst dinosaurs. So
that's in there.
That's in there. Yeah. Yeah. So, and just so many other incredible like discoveries. It's a real incredible place. I highly recommend, you know, Cambodia. There's a river called the River of 1,000 Lingas with these carved structures underneath the flowing water, all the way down the river out of solid stone. How in the world do you carve solid stone structures underneath a flowing river? I mean, it's mind-boggling stuff. It's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling. That's that Kulin Mountain. So we'll hike up Kulin Mountain. We'll see the 1,000 Linga River, and then we'll go swimming at the waterfall with the monks. It's going to be an incredible trip. So, just incredible stuff. There's places that people, you know, out there you never think existed, but they're out there.
So I want to get into Antarctica.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You know, it really sparked my interest. I had when we met at Dr. Greer's conference, you know, with Eric Hecker.
Yeah.
He talked about how Raytheon has a facility down there. I'd had people email in about this guy, Admiral Byrd, who was a famous explorer, World War II.
Yeah.
World War II admiral.
Yeah.
And had done a lot of exploring down there. And then, you know, the more I dig into this, it's just...
Yeah, that's a wild story.
It is. You know, we got in 1954, Admiral Byrd quoted, Antarctica in the future would become the most important place in the world for science. Rockefeller was a big patron of Byrd's expeditions to the North Pole and the South Pole. Why do you think Admiral Byrd and the Rockefellers were so much more interested in Antarctica, the South Pole, rather than the North Pole, having been to both?
Well, you know, he had been to both. He had been to the North Pole in the 1920s, and he had seen that. But there is a situation that began to happen during World War II, where they discovered that the Nazis went down to Antarctica and built a base down there, New Schwabenland. And they were like, wait a minute, why in the world would they go to this desolate place? What's down there that they would want to go and go through the harsh weather and risk everything, risk even their lives to be down there and build a base? So he decided to fly down there. Now, there's an incredible story that was in Admiral Byrd's diary that was found by his kids, where he said he flew into an area that opened up at Antarctica, and he went into an area where it was lush and tropical almost. And as he got into this area, This is according to his own diary. People can look this up. Something took over his plane, and these two UFO-type craft, circular craft, flying saucers came, and it took over his craft, and it guided him in to this area where they landed. And then they took him to meet somebody that he calls in his diary, the Master. Pretty interesting story. And according to this account, the Nazis had gotten help to create these craft called the Hanabu. They had 4 versions of this craft, these circular disc craft, from these people down there. But the guy, this Master, told him that they were wary of the nuclear bombs that had just been utilized, dropped the nuke on Japan and so forth, and they were wary of our experimentation with nuclear devices and wars because they're sharing this planet as well. Pretty interesting story. And so, all of a sudden, Admiral Byrd's going down there with a fleet, not just a small fleet. He took over 3,000 people with him. This was a huge expedition. It was a military expedition. When he got down there, they had a situation where some of these flying objects were attacking some of their ships and actually destroyed some of them. Sent him back home packing with his tail between his legs. This is one of the top admirals, literally the top admiral in the world at the time for the United States military. And he said that we have a new enemy that can fly from pole to pole with extreme speed. Why would he make a statement like that? And then all of a sudden, these Nazi, they are rumored to have these craft, which some of the designs have been found, called Hanabu. And these Hanabu craft had the capability of utilizing a couple different forms of propulsion. One was jets, so they can take off vertically. They had little jets that would thrust and take off vertically, but then from there they can shoot off horizontally. Well, they were using a device that was spinning in the center of the craft, and what it appears to be is they began to copy technology from the ancient Indian Vedas, because Hitler was sending his people all around the world to get knowledge on ancient technology. That's how they found these people in Antarctica. He even sent people to Tibet, Nazis to Tibet, to talk to the people in Tibet to find out about this ancient technology. He found out about Vimanas, and these people supposedly in Antarctica helped him develop a couple of them, where they use a ferrofluid vortex engine. A ferrofluid is a liquid metal like mercury. And in the ancient Indian Vedas, if you take mercury and rotate it at a high rotation, a high RPM, and electrify it, you get something called anti-gravity. So he was utilizing something that had rotating discs underneath these round craft, according to eyewitness accounts, and also the schematics that were discovered during the collapse of Nazi Germany. And it's pretty interesting that I think besides the uranium that's down there in Antarctica, which obviously you know what uranium's used for, right? Nuclear power plants and also nuclear weapons. There's mountains of, Admiral Byrd said there were mountains of coal with no ice caps. No ice caps, his exact words, and I can give you a copy to this video. His own mouth is saying, no ice. Mountains of coal that can satisfy the world's need for coal for a very, very, very long time. Also, there's plutonium down there. Again, so uranium and plutonium, we know that if you have a high level of plutonium and uranium, it's one of the easier elements that you can separate the atoms. You can split atoms very easily, which makes it high use for weaponry and also power plants. So that's why the government wanted access down there. That's why the Germans wanted access down there. And that's why after Germany fell, we had Project Paperclip, where we took all the scientists from Germany that had learned all this wisdom and knowledge, and we brought them to America. People think Project Paperclip was just a small number of Nazis. We took over 2,000 Nazis with us and brought them to America and put them in positions of power over technology companies, the CIA, the space program at NASA, and so forth and so on. And we began to develop these technologies. So in a weird kind of way, America became the Fourth Reich, to be honest with you. And I know that they were developing at the time the Hanabu number 4, which supposedly Hitler never got killed. He escaped in Hanabu number 4 to Argentina, which is very, very close to where? Antarctica. If you look at Google Sky right now on the computer and look down on Antarctica, you'll find bases from, research bases from every major country in the world there. And you'll also find the Rockefeller Foundation base as well. So Admiral Byrd was right. all the technology and research. It's the #1 place in the world for technology research is right down there in Antarctica. I believe that as the ice is melting, they're finding remnants of an ancient civilization. We know that Antarctica was not a frozen tundra for 12 million years, like mainstream scientists want you to. 12 million years to build up all this ice. No, that's not accurate. We know this because of the Perry-Reese map. The Perry-Reese map shows Antarctica what it looked like without ice on it, and that's not even that old. So we know that Antarctica shifted into that spot. How? Because we know that Antarctica is surrounded by tectonic plates. And so that landmass was on a plate that slipped and there was something called a pole shift of the crust of the Earth, which shifted it from a more habitable climate into the position it is now. And that's why the animals that are being uncovered from the ice were flash frozen with undigested food in their stomachs. And there's an entire advanced civilization there, including some of the largest pyramids on Earth, right in Antarctica.